Getting rich is easier than you think. That's right, getting rich doesn't have to be difficult. Sometimes it's surprisingly easy. Contrary to the belief that getting rich is next to impossible and only reserved for the extremely lucky few, it's actually not hard at all once you make some small changes, and making these adjustments can begin to improve your life almost immediately. Take a look at these reasons why building wealth isn't as difficult as some people would lead you to believe. Stay to the end because this will open your eyes to how easy it can be. My name is Chris, and I help teach people about money, personal finance, and investing. If you're interested in improving your financial future, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if this video is helpful. A mindset shift will work wonders. Changing your mindset from someone who constantly makes excuses as to why it's too difficult to get rich to someone who looks for ways to make it happen goes further than you think. Just a simple mindset shift can make an astronomical difference. Once you begin to look at the situation in a different way, you can begin to look for things you can do to get closer to your goals instead of acting like it's completely out of your control. Take a look at the thought pattern of someone you know who might not be the best with money. There's a good chance they complain about being broke, yet continue to make decisions that will only make the situation worse, like leaving work early, smoking cigarettes, or going into debt. Understanding that you have the ability to make changes for the better and beginning to look for ways to make incremental improvements is extremely powerful, and it's not difficult to do. It doesn't take much knowledge or skill. It's not necessary to be a money or investing wizard to do well financially. Really, there are only a few concepts you need to understand, like paying yourself first. This entails setting a portion of your income aside each time you get paid and investing it consistently. Just doing this one thing is sometimes all that's needed to build wealth over time, and anyone can do this. Most people will argue that it's just not possible for them to pay themselves anything because they don't earn enough money. After all, no one wants to reduce their paycheck. That might be the case for people who are truly struggling, but most people will find a way to manage with slightly less money after setting a little aside. Once they begin doing this, they'll completely forget about the money that was set aside automatically and not even realize it's missing. In addition, living below your means is a prerequisite to getting rich. It takes some practice for those who aren't used to living on less than they earn, but it's not that hard to do. You will develop good money habits. It's extremely easy for someone to get rich when they have good habits pertaining to money. When you have poor money habits, you're always going to be broke, sick, and tired, and breaking those habits that you've created over many years can take some time. The opposite is true when you develop good money habits. It takes a little while to eliminate bad habits and replace them with good ones, but once you develop good behaviors, you don't need to make any changes, and you can just continue doing what you're doing. Avoiding debt, not making purchases on impulse, living below your means, and investing are some of these habits that tend to stick with you once established. It can be hard to create these habits at first, but sticking with them is easy and you'll be happy you did. Planning for your future, saving money, and staying on top of your finances will lead you to financial freedom, and you'll be prepared for unexpected expenses and have a comfortable future. You don't need to sacrifice much. One of the most common excuses poor people use is that they don't want to wait years and years to enjoy their money. They want to enjoy it now. They want to buy what they want when they want it. It's as if they believe they're going to need to live in a tent until they finally get rich, at which point they can finally begin enjoying the finer things in life. What they don't realize is that it's completely unnecessary to give up every last thing that brings you happiness today in order to build wealth for your future self. It's possible to still enjoy the things that are important to you and build wealth at the same time. You can still spend money on what you enjoy, but what you can't do is waste money. That means you're going to need to cut out those subscription services you don't use anymore, and you might not be able to finance a fancier and more luxurious car every single year. By cutting out wasteful spending, you can still spend money on the things that are important to you. You can keep doing what you're doing. It's not like you need to abandon everything you're doing now and start a new life in a new direction in order to make the changes needed to get ahead. Oftentimes, only small changes are needed to help you get from where you are currently to the road to success. It's not necessary to switch careers. Have you ever heard a successful person preaching that they didn't quit working for 5 years straight and that's how they were able to get rich? That's fine if it worked for them, but thinking this is necessary for you can scare you off from making any progress. You don't need to spend your every waking minute, including nights and weekends, creating a startup in your garage. You can continue working the same job for the same amount of time each week and still make forward progress. You don't need to sell everything you own, quit going out to eat for the foreseeable future, and stop spending money on basically everything. The amount of change needed depends on where you currently stand, but for most of us, major changes aren't required. Just small adjustments will do. It gets easier and easier. At first, it seems like getting rich is an insurmountable task. When you're living paycheck to paycheck, buried in debt, and barely making any money, reaching financial freedom seems impossible. How could you get from a point of continual struggle to a point of wealth and success where you no longer have to worry about money? It's almost impossible to fathom. You'd be relieved to hear that as you make progress, getting rich becomes easier and easier. It takes time to get the ball rolling when you're focusing on paying off bad debt, getting your savings in order, increasing your income, and beginning to invest. As you begin to check these milestones off the list, the ball begins rolling and it becomes easier and easier to save more money, find ways to increase your income, and your investments begin to grow exponentially. Many people don't realize how the process gets easier and easier and are instead intimidated to the point where they never make the first move. Compound interest is very helpful. It's nearly impossible for someone who has never invested a penny to see how quickly compound interest can work in your favor. Say you need $1 million in order to retire. You're not going to personally save $1 million because that would be nearly impossible. Most of that sum will be from compound interest. Compound interest can be incredibly powerful, which makes getting rich much easier than you'd think. Let's say you have $10,000 that you're going to invest into the S&P 500 and earn an average annual return of 10%. It's going to take over 7 years for that money to double and grow to $20,000, giving you a total return of $10,000. Now let's say you have $100,000 invested in the S&P 500. It will only take an average of 1 year to grow to $110,000, netting you the same $10,000. And in about 7 years, it will have doubled and become $200,000. It's painfully slow at first, but once your investments reach a certain point, the gains are going to outpace your working income. Say you invest $12,000 per year into the S&P 500. After 30 years, you'll have a total of about $1,170,000. You only saved about $235,000, and the rest was interest earned. Getting rich doesn't have to be difficult. In fact, it's easier than people think, but some people are unnecessarily overwhelmed with the process, which prevents them from making any progress. It's not necessary to change every aspect of your life. More often than not, just a few simple changes are needed to get from a place of perpetual poverty to a place of prosperity, making the overall process easier than most would believe.